Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, what we got to do to get AJ Griffin some more playing time?
And some things clicked and changed over the pond Sunday, but does that mean changes in Flowery Branch?
And last but not least, and for the culture, not only do you rob me, but you bring back the stuff that you don't like. Oh, that's all coming up next on ATL Day Ones. Don't go anywhere. Let's go, baby.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen today. And I also want to recommend that you leave us a 5-star review wherever you download our podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure you keep checking out Locked On Sports today. Also, ATL Day Ones episode today is brought to you by Bet Online. And the Atlanta Hawks took a big L to the Philadelphia 76ers. And one of the things that you kind of look at through this game, and just from a big takeaway, like they desperately need scoring off the bench Saturday night against the 76ers because they got down big. But, AJ Griffin didn't get into the game until the fourth quarter and provided some much-needed scoring. Now, we pretty much said this every time that we've seen Griffin get some minutes. And he only played 12 minutes. He played the entire fourth quarter. And oddly enough, that was when the Hawks started to make a push to make that comeback. So what do you think is Nate's hesitation about giving AJ Griffin more minutes?
Yeah, I think part of it is just it's hard to let new tricks really, really come to the forefront for the old dog. That's just the truth of the matter.
Right. Yes.
I think it's going to take time for that to be Nate McMillan's instant reaction, like, oh, I'll bring up the rookie, or honestly, oh, I'll even get Jalen Johnson, because Jalen Johnson a lot of times is instant buckets as well. So I really just think it's one of those things where he just has to get into that feel for pulling someone off the bench who's not a veteran, right? Because he definitely has done it with both of the Holiday brothers. We've seen that throughout this entire 14-game season so far. But honestly, that's all I could point to as an explanation as to why AJ Griffin was not brought into that rotation sooner.
Yeah, he was asked about it after the game on Saturday night, and Ms. Williams at AJC asked him about, we put him in tonight to try to give us a spark, and he was able to knock down a couple of shots. So we'll continue to look at that. And then she had kind of followed it up, and she was like, well, it's just two sides of the ball. So a lot of times I'm looking at matchups, who he's guarding, who he has to guard in response to, making sure that he get him more minutes. And later he said, we'll get him in when we can.
But can I say something to that, Jarvis? Because I knew that was going to be the response, because Nate is a defensive-minded coach. So I will acknowledge that I knew that was going to be the response, looking at the matchups on the other end of the court. But again, I think the point that you make is more salient, which is in a game that's high scoring, unfortunately, there are times when you have to match points for points, right?
Yes.
Especially if you're not able to
get adjustments.
Yeah. If you're not able to get stop, then maybe you say to yourself, and listen, I do understand this, and I do on some level agree with Coach Nate, because you don't want the Hawks to then fall back into their old habits, right? Which is just heaving up the ball and hoping it goes in. So I know why he did it, but if he could have maybe just tinkered with it just a few minutes earlier, right? We're not saying put AJ Griffin in the second quarter, but we are saying maybe midway through the third, maybe, a few minutes before the third ends, when you're giving maybe your starters a break, that would have been a better opportunity for him. Because remember, AJ Griffin is a guy who embraces being a two-way player as well. Even if he wasn't going to be your best defender out there, he still embraces it and would have defended.
He doesn't look lost on defense like a lot of rookies have done in the past.
Now, what I will tell you as well is we saw what AJ Griffin was able to do in the win against the Bucks last Monday. So I don't know that it'll be coincidental necessarily that we might see AJ Griffin get more minutes tonight, regardless of if Trae Young actually plays, which by all accounts he will indeed plays, not on the early injury report or anything.
No doubt about it. And also, hopefully, Onyeka Okongwu, with him being out, that was huge, because Frank Kaminsky is, I hate to say this to you, but, I hope his parents aren't watching or listening to this show. He's useless. to be honest with you. Like defensively, it was just wide open.
Yep.
And Joel Embiid took a whole advantage of that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
So hopefully he'll be back, and that can kind of bring. And he was out because of a personal matter, so it was nothing. It wasn't injury related. So hopefully he'll be back in the fold to kind of help to deal with Mr. Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yes, I don't care if I messed it up. If I did, oh well. But those are some of the things that I think that Nate has to kind of take into consideration when you talking about making those necessary adjustments. Like you said, you need scoring off the bench. He can give you that. Well, he had 9 points in the fourth quarter. He played the entire fourth quarter, like I mentioned earlier. So those are some of the things that I think that Nate's going to have to take into consideration. And I'll add this, and we can kind of move on to Atlanta Braves. Travis Schlenk, I wholeheartedly remember this when he was doing the broadcast, and he was like, "Hey, let's get this kid in, let's get this guy in." And if the general manager is willing to say that outwardly on a broadcast that everybody can hear, and Lord knows Nate probably got back to him. If the general manager say put the kid in, because he has been nothing but productive since he's been in there. Yeah, absolutely. So those are some of the things that we're definitely going to keep an eye on as the Hawks take on the Milwaukee Bucks tonight. Trae Young should be in the lineup, and hopefully Onyeka Okongwu can be back, so we won't have to see any more of Mr. Kaminsky. Now we know how the Braves rookies got down this year. They had no Alex Anthopoulos and Brian Snitker had no problem whatsoever getting those boys in there, and they absolutely did their thing. So, hey, this is some consequences of that, some good consequences. We like good consequences, some good trouble. They got into some good trouble. It was when they announced Sunday that Michael Harris II and Spencer Strider are finalists for NL Rookie of the Year. Brian Snitker and Max Fried are finalists for NL Manager of the Year and the Cy Young, respectively. So they're going to announce these awards in the next few days,
Yeah.
Is the debate more so about who deserves Rookie of the Year more, or should the writer say, you know what, these guys should go ahead and figure out how to do a co-Rookie of the Year type situation?
That's what we think it should be now. There's one guy that may have heard of out of St. Louis, right? Who maybe has an outside shot, Brendan Donovan. But honestly, I think the conversation is way more, and maybe we're biased, admittedly, maybe we're biased. But I really
that's okay. That's fine.
It is what it is. But I do think it's maybe more about the 1-2, right? Like, okay, we honestly think Michael Harris II should be the Rookie of the Year, but there is a pitcher's bias, just like there's a quarterback bias in the NFL. Indeed. So 9 times out of 10, Spencer Strider is going to get Rookie of the Year. But that really should be a 1-2 punch, a super duper close vote. And if Brendan Donovan is not third, I think that's where our problem is going to be. Like, well, what were the Baseball Writers of America looking at this entire back half of the season?
Right, exactly. And to be honest with you, Michael Harris was one of the catalysts for that closing off that 10-game deficit and winning the division. So those are some of the things that I feel like, because he was able to affect the game in so many different ways, whether it come from base running or getting on base and being that guy in that ninth hole. Just being so productive. He was one of the reasons why it was that spot was so productive throughout the entire season. So it's easy to get fascinated by the strikeouts and all that stuff. And don't get me wrong, I was fascinated by it as well. Yeah. But when you're talking about a 5'2" guy coming in and doing what he did, and Michael Harris and doing what he did throughout the entire season since June, since he made his debut, it's just, you can't ignore that. And I think that in today's game, where everybody is either home run or strikeout, type when it comes to hitting, I think that it's a breath of fresh air to see a guy like Michael Harris II get his knowledge like he was supposed to. And, like you said, you can do both. Like, those guys get co-Rookie of the Year. I think that would make so much sense to me. And I think that the baseball writers actually do something right this time. But T, guess what? If you're trying to do something right, as far as trying to get some money, win some money, you're trying to see what's going on, go to betonline.net today, because it is the #1 source for all your betting needs, because you guys listen to us each and every day to get your ATL sports information by listening to our podcast, whether it be on YouTube or on wherever you download your podcast. Guess what? BetOnline has the exact same information. They have the exact same way you can do it. They have podcasts ready to roll. So if you're trying to figure out what's going on, whether or not what the point spread is for Georgia against Kentucky this weekend, why don't you go ahead and go to betonline.net? They are the fastest and most reliable source, and they have all the information there right for you. So, hey, if you want to go to BetOnline today, or you download it on your mobile device, because BetOnline is where the game starts.
Heck, and if you really want to hedge your bets, you can go to Bet Online, even for Georgia LSU, because the numbers are already out for the SEC title game.
Right.
It's weeks away. It is absolutely crazy, but it's for right now. I think it's a 2-touchdown differential there. But like Jarvis said, if you want to check it out to see if that line moves, Bet Online is definitely the place for you to go. Now, after the game recently, it was a Thursday game that we all know as of Friday, Jarvis just could not let go of the meltdown that was the Falcons against the Panthers on Thursday, right? Now, after the game, Arthur Smith talked about realizing that sometimes when the journey is over, when someone's trying to make a play, and then you kind of think about, okay, journey, what exactly did Arthur Smith mean? Because sometimes we try to break down coach speak, guys.
Of course, don't do that. You have to.
Yeah. So we know that the Falcons are now 4-6 because, of course, the Bucs won. And that was what I was alluding to over the pond, won that game against the Seahawks yesterday. Now they're back in sole possession of first place in the division. So what journey should be over at this point when now the Falcons are 4-6 and they're looking wherever you want to say, whether that's upward, downward, straight ahead, but what journey are they supposed to be on now at this stage of the season?
I think they should be the guys that have shown flashes, meaning the young pups, and I'll start on defense because that's kind of where my concerns are right now. As they go through this season, because the quarterback situation is what it is. It is what it is at this moment, and I think that you can start by talking about the outside linebacker. I'm done watching Lorenzo Carter. I really am. I am. I'm cool. I'm cool on that. He can be a situational guy, come in and rush the pass on third down, opposite of Arnold Ebiketie. That's cool. But I think it's time for Ebiketie to get more snaps, get more reps at rushing the passer, because as a pass rusher, you have to get into a rhythm, right? Because as you get used to going against the guy, you watch film, understand what his weaknesses may be, and there is a rhythm that goes to rushing the passer. Because if I'm setting him up, or if I'm rushing edge, and then as I'm getting them those more snaps, I might come in and say, you know what, I'm acting like I'm going edge, and then boom, I'm spinning inside. And as the offensive linemen are so creatures of habit, right? They're going to start expecting you to go edge, and then once you get that opportunity to go inside on them, that may be that opportunity to get that sack. But you can't do that if you are rotating in. So it's kind of like it's kind of a catch-22 when you are allowing the veterans to get most of the snaps, when you know which the development that Ebiketie is missing out by being on the field, because pass rush, you got to do it. You can't learn by osmosis, and you never hear the conversations about, Arnold Ebiketie has to sit down and learn for a year behind Lorenzo Carter. No, absolutely not. So I think Arnold Ebiketie needs to be forced into that starting role, and I think D'Angelo Malone needs to be in there more as well, because that's what this is all about, seeing what your guys can do and making sure they're getting the necessary snaps, because these are the guys that you drafted to take this team forward and get some of that cheap labor that you're talking about when you're talking about competing for divisional championships and then going further in the playoffs as time goes along.
So it's interesting because as you look at the depth chart, and obviously looking at a D'Angelo Malone and giving him that opportunity, and like you said, giving AK that opportunity as well, you look at some other spaces, and I'm thinking, agree with you on D'Angelo Malone. My mind also went to Troy Anderson and giving him some opportunity to show what he can do in different spaces. Obviously, he's given some flashes on special teams. That's one of the ways that you prove yourself. So that would be interesting as well to see who else the Falcons can put in that special team situation to see what they can give them on special teams. That's obviously how Avery Williams was able to show that he had some value of a different kind, maybe than what he was initially drafted for, but still he gave value. He is giving, and I don't even want to say gave, but he's continuing to give some valuable minutes.
Yes,
So I thought about some other individuals, but it's kind of like a two-pronged question, right? Because you're still in this interesting space, however, where you are 4-6 and you still have some teams that are kind of up, down, and around that you could or could not beat, which puts you in position to possibly get the divisional title. And that's really your only path. Let's be honest. That's the Falcons' only real path
that's
to
the only way it's going down. Yeah.
Exactly. If you're not getting too close, even as the NFC South champion, you're not getting there. But at this juncture, with the Bears kind of looking, I know they lost yesterday, but kind of still weirdly trending up, if you will. And with the Steelers kind of being, I don't know, some type of weird, we don't know what to do with them.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, we don't really know who they are going to be by December 5th, because it'll be dictated in large part by who they get back off the injured list. Same situation with the Saints. I'm wondering, how much do you tinker with that lineup on defense? And we'll get to offense in a second, but how much do you tinker with that lineup on defense to balance out, giving those guys the opportunities, the reps to get them in rhythm, but on the same token, making sure you put, quote unquote, your best players out there to give you an opportunity to keep competing for that division title through the end of the season?
I think that you have to kind of, I feel like DNPs has to kind of look at what's been going on as of late, right? Because they have just been getting up so much yardage, especially on the ground, because I can kind of deal with the yardage in the passing game because of all the injuries with AJ Terrell, Casey Hayward going down. Obviously, when you lose your starting two corners on the outside, that is a big deal. I don't care what team or what amount of depth that you have in the NFL, that's going to hurt you. And I get that part of it. But when you start talking about teams being able to run the football down your throats consistently, you paid the same team twice in 2 days in the Carolina Panthers, and they did the exact same thing that they did to you the first time around. They did it the second time around with the same exact person, you know, and it just, those are the type of things that cannot happen. And when you are talking about those veterans being in there when that is going down, if I'm going to get beat, you know, if those guys aren't doing what they're supposed to do, then I'm going to be more willing to give guys like D'Angelo Malone and Arnold Ebiketie more opportunities because of the particular situations that I just mentioned. So if you aren't going to do what you're supposed to do, and it just seems like we're 10 games in now, it just doesn't make sense for me to continue to go out there and play you and say, hey, oh, yeah, this is the veteran leadership, or this is the veteran, or he knows what to do in these particular situations. He has this great technique against the run. He might not be the greatest pass rusher in the world, but he's really solid against the run. That's not what we're saying, because, like I said, they've been run through these past few games. So I think that if Dean Pease had taken consideration what's been going on as of late from a small point of view, and also look at the big picture, saying, all right, I need to get my young pups in here. I know I may be able to take a little L on certain situations, but I know that the talent is there, and I'm going to be betting on these guys that they're going to flash just like we drafted them to be.
Now, I'm going to bet that there's going to be a really cool flash on Locked On Sports today. Now, of course, you guys always stop by us and listen to get our reaction to any and everything that's based in Atlanta sports, but the biggest stories of the day across the entire sports landscape, instant reactions, big game recaps. You know, people are talking about that Vikings-Bills game as the biggest and best game of the entire season. Yeah, so if you want some reaction to that, and if you want some thoughts on even I would say kind of like For the Culture, but they call theirs Take of the Day, then you want to check out Locked On Sports today, and check them out the same place you check us out, on the Odyssey app, on YouTube, or wherever you download your podcast. Because guess what? Just like we have something to say on this podcast, they have something to say on that podcast as well. Now, Jarvis, I'm going to flip it for you, because here's a thought process just real quick. In the rationale that you gave on defense is actually the polar opposite rationale that most are given on offense. Because if the rationale on defense is, hey, you veterans, it ain't working. The math ain't mathing with you guys. So we're going to let these young guys come in, whether they're first year, second year, and let's see what they can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Flip side, however, Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder. Are we to the point where we're ready to say, hey, that veteran, just using your analogy just a moment ago on defense, that veteran, he ain't getting it done. Let's see what this young pup can do.
Oh, man. See, here's the thing. Like, a lot of people are using the analogy that, oh, Desmond Ridder is not ready. He's not doing what he's supposed to do in practice. So that he's just not good enough to be inserted into the lineup right now. I don't buy that, because at the end of the day, you don't trust who you drafted. All of the reports, and I was down there myself, down in the Senior Bowl. The Falcons love Desmond Ridder. They love his leadership skills. They love all this and all that. And let's go rewind back to training camp, rookie mini camps.
Yes.
What do we always hear coming out of the first thing coming out of Desmond Ridder's mouth? I'm competing for a starting position, and I'm going to go out and compete for the starting position. Marcus Mariota, I look up to him, but I'm still competing. And I was like, how do you balance that, Desmond? Hey, you balance it by respecting what he's done in the NFL and all this, blah, 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 blah. And then next thing you know, crickets. Crickets. When we got to training camp, I'm just trying to learn. I'm just trying to figure things out. And I'm a rookie. Like, people, like, I know you know, T, but for all those people, all the people right now, you listen to this podcast, I know a lot of y'all do. Y'all think that it was by coincidence? That was no coincidence that he stopped talking. I'm almost certain that, hey, man, stop talking about competition, because this ain't no competition right now. Right. Because they want to. Marcus Mariota was brought in to be the starting quarterback, and I don't think that the fact that Desmond Ridder hasn't been inserted into the lineup, I don't think it's an indictment on Desmond Ridder. I think it's an indictment on what they want to do, and they're going to stick to that until they see fit. Yes. What that fit is, T, I think it may have to be a reason why. Well, you talked about at the beginning of this segment, talking about whether or not they're up for that NFC South division title, because that's the only way they're getting in. And I believe that as soon as that happens, as far as them moving out of that competition, we might see Desmond Ridder.
Yeah, because it may not be. The first thought was always, hey, if he has like just this horrific game, right, or maybe two horrific games, then we're done here. Well, we saw the first one, and there's a very good chance that you're going to see another horrific game come Sunday against the Bears. But the question then becomes, but how far out of first place are you? Because if you're still just 2 games out of first place, or a game out of first place, or we win the game, etc., then that conversation remains where it has been the first 10 weeks, which is Marcus Mariota is QB1. So to your point, different than what you're dealing with on defense. On defense, you have the opportunity, because you never said, meaning DBs, you never said that you were, quote unquote, married to one particular player, veteran, rookie, second year, etc. On offense, it was a little bit of a different philosophy. So that's why you're seeing, because it was a different philosophy from the beginning, we got our starter, he is our starter, he's our starter, then no, you're not going to go to that rookie as quickly as maybe Dean Pease can go to it, because he has the ability to shuffle it around, because everybody's job is always up for grabs on defense, pretty much, unless your name's Grady Jarrett, or you know what I'm saying?
Exactly, yeah. So those are some of the things that you can play around with on defense, because guys rotate all the time, and you don't necessarily have to really answer questions like, why is Arnold Ebiketie not playing? Why is D'Angelo Malone not playing? Because they're getting snaps. Like, they're getting snaps in certain times, and even with Troy Anderson as well. So, you can use him for specific situations, whether, on third down and long, where you know that you're blitzing and you want to be able to utilize that athletic skill set that Anderson has shown from time to time throughout this season. Notice I said time to time. Yeah. We're going to have a conversation about Troy Anderson at some point as the season goes along, but we'll leave that for a later date, T. But I think that, all in all, the Dean Pease has a task at hand right now, and I think that some of those decisions needs to be made, because we've seen some good from Arnold Ebiketie, and like he said, sitting at 1.5 sacks right now. Like, I wouldn't be. The more he plays, I feel like the more opportunity he's going to be able to put the quarterback on the ground, and you're just not getting that from your veterans and Ogundeji and Lorenzo Carter. So hey, go ahead and give the man some love. Show him some love. We're going to show you some love for making sure that we are on our way to 5,000 subscribers. The people have just been showing love by subscribing to our YouTube channel. If you don't know how to do that and you haven't done it yet, what are you waiting on? Go to YouTube, type in that little search box, Locked On Sports Atlanta or ATL Day Ones, however you want to do it. And all our little videos and everything going to pop up. And all you have to do is hit that subscribe button to check us out. And because, like I said, we are over 4,800, we are moving towards 5,000. So if you are part of the cool kids and you hit that subscribe button already, thank you. If you're not, stop being lame and go ahead and hit that button. But T, this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, and the culture. Sometimes whatever the hell you want to talk about, because just how we get down on the show. Today is no different. Sandy Springs, woman was her house got broken into, T, and there were several houses hit in the neighborhood. But that happens as we get closer to the holidays, how people want to start taking stuff from folks. And, there's two people that I can't stand in this world, liars and thieves. And I think that I definitely hate thieves more. I'll use the word hate for that particular situation. But they not only robbed the place, T, but they came back and dropped off some of the stuff they didn't want. Like, what? I'm just at a loss. They was like, you know what? This was cool. But you know what? We really don't need this. Right. Like, then we can go give this back to them. Like, just the gall to be able to go drop the stuff back off because you don't want it. Like, we took it. We were just tripping. We had a weak moment. Yeah, we don't want this right now. Y'all can have this. You can continue to use this TV or whatever the product was. Right. That is just so crazy to me, T. I don't even know how to put it into words. I'm struggling through that.
You really can't. Because I was thinking the same thing. What did you decide when you got home that it was not a 4K TV, and so that wasn't good enough for you, and so you brought it back? I mean, is that what happened?
Oh, we ain't messing with these 780p's. We want 4K only.
Right.
Like, what?
What are you talking about? And then I thought, okay, dumb criminal. I'm sure a fingerprint is on something you returned. Right. Because you're dumb. You're dumb enough to bring it back. So
exactly.
Sure, you're dumb enough to put your fingerprint on it. So I am just waiting for the report from some local news outlet that tells us who these people are and that they're going to be arrested, because they are. I mean, they are, because you're foolish. But I hope you get it. I hope you get arrested. And I hope you don't think that somehow when you do, because you will be, that the judge is supposed to grant leniency because you brought some of it back. Did you bring all? But you didn't bring all of it back. Man, so it certainly wasn't altruistic in nature. But
yeah.
Hope you get
yeah. Like, absolutely. That's some of the things that I just feel like I just want to punch you in the face. Like, I'm just be honest. Like, you deserve to be punched in the face. You breaking in folks' houses, man, especially around this time of year. Ugh, that's just. Speaking of this time of year, T, I think that this is some of the things that I'm sure that we are getting tired of talking about. We're talking about mass shootings. Talking about the shooting that went down at University of Virginia, where a football player. There was end up being 3 guys that were found dead. They were shot. And the names of the guys that I want to say their names first, because I don't really care to put the guy who actually did it out there. But I would just want to say a quick rest in peace to Lavelle Davis, Devin Chandler, and Deshaun Perry, and these guys that were on college campus playing football, T. And I think about, I can't do anything but think about myself being in a situation and how my mom and dad sent me off to college to go better myself from an education standpoint and continue my football career. And for these guys to lose their lives doing something positive, being out there, like this, it just makes me sad. It just makes me sad when you hear things like this going down.
It does. And I think about those parents and how those parents did just what your parents did. They sent their kids off and said, hey, go have a great semester. Some of them may not have been able to travel to see their sons play football. So maybe the last time they even saw their sons was in June or July or August before they got into training camp. Imagine you haven't seen your child in person for months, and this is what happens.
Yeah.
And you send them off. I know one kid, for example, was from Miami, and you send that kid off from Miami to Charlottesville, and you're thinking to yourself,
Virginia.
like, Charlottesville, I mean, surely my kid is safe in Charlottesville.
Right.
And I just thought about this even last week at homecoming. Like, unfortunately, we live in a world where you literally have to have your radar up all the time. And I promise you, we have plainclothes security. And I was looking around myself because we live in that world. And then I even thought, going back to Virginia, I thought about my little cousin. He actually just graduated. He played football there for 4 years. So I'm like, he knows he knows the 5 victims, because 3 are deceased, 2 are fighting for their lives in the hospital, and he knows the shooter. And all I could think of was, my goodness, he's probably thinking about, life and how it was just months ago for him, knowing these individuals, and now they're gone. So just everyone who is affected, we just definitely want to send out our prayers and our thoughts, and hopefully the 2 individuals in the hospital can pull through.
Yeah, and most definitely, like this, and those are some of the things that you just don't think about at that age, because being in that spot, you 18 to 23, you don't think about death. Like you feel invincible, and for a person that you played with, you went out on the field with, you practiced with, to target you and take you out, it has to be something going on, and some deeper than what we're seeing. Obviously, we know the details will continue to come out, but as they do, we definitely want to keep their family and the families of those who deceased and in the hospital, and pray that they come through in the situation that they're kind of dealing with right now. So I want to say thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. And remember, check out Locked On Sports today. The take of the day, they talk about all the big national stories of the day. And coming up on tomorrow's show, hopefully, we'll talk about a Hawks win and get each and everything that was going on in the Atlanta sports scene. We'll start previewing the Bears versus the Falcons. You know what, guys? Just want to say before we get out of here, y'all stay safe out there.
Stay safe.